Fiona, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and we'll see where it takes us. So let's go back to the beginning.
Whoa.
Where were you born?
I was born in Ipswich, not too far from here.
Amazing.
And went to school in Ipswich. It's one of those weird things that when I can't remember, I must have been about 14 or 15, and you have a careers talk at school. And you had to fill in a questionnaire, and one of the things that came up was, occupational therapist would be good for you. I had no idea what an occupational therapist was.
And do you know why they considered it was a good choice for you?
I think because I enjoyed things like biology, but I was also arty for some reason, so they thought the creative side of things was significant. Didn't really know what an occupational therapist was, but I also at the same time was doing Duke of Edinburgh's award, and part of that you have to volunteer in different places, and I volunteered for at a youth club for young people with physical disabilities.
And how old were you at the time?
I would have been about 14, 15. And then I moved on to the next level of Duke of Edinburgh's award, and I had to do another voluntary service. And I then sought out a different sector. So I went and worked or volunteered at a youth club for young adults with mental health problems. It was on a Tuesday evening. It was in a bar, they used to play games and stuff. And through that, I met an occupational therapist who was also working with them. And so I then started talking to her. So it was through that. Then from personal experience, I had a grandmother who had dementia and was moved to St Clement's, which was kind of mental health hospital. And it absolutely traumatised me that she was in there. And I couldn't visit her, and it was because she wasn't like my grandmother, and it was horrible. And then when I must have been 17, I found out a little bit more about occupational therapists. I'd met this person at this youth club, and I had an opportunity to go and do some work experience through school. And I decided I'm going to go back to St Clement's and work with the occupational therapists there to kind of overcome my fear of when my grandmother was in there. So that was my kind of first step.
That's amazing. So you'd actually had a bad experience with what you thought was going on there. Yeah. So you were keen to get back and do something about it.
Yeah. Yes, I suppose that's what it was. Yeah. I thought it was me overcoming my fear of what had been my grandmother who wasn't my grandmother, because she wasn't able to recognise me. She wasn't able to recognise anybody or do things for herself. And it just felt so wrong how she was and how I reacted to that. So I needed to overcome it. So that's, yeah. And then I wanted to train to be an occupational therapist. I failed my A-levels terribly. I did really badly. So I couldn't get a place at university.
And did you have to do specific A-levels that would help towards?
Well, I at that time I just did the A-levels that I thought were interesting, which was social biology, sociology, and geography. They would have been all right, but I failed them all. So I thought, that's it. I'm leaving Ipswich. I moved to London and volunteered as a live-in carer for someone with physical disability. So it was a young woman in her mid-20s, and it was something called community service volunteers. So I worked as a live-in carer, 2 days on, 2 days off, with this young woman who was hoisted, who used a wheelchair, and so I learnt how to help somebody with hoisting, how to put on a sling, how to help with toilet. So the care aspect of doing that.
And you were still quite young at the time. 19
at the time. It was more the excitement of London that drove me, but that's what I did.
Perhaps, but did you find you had a natural affinity to this kind of work? Did it come naturally once you began?
I suppose it came naturally in that I was very able to work with that person or those people to do what they wanted me to do. And she told me how it is that she wanted me to support her.
And that's what occupational therapy is really about, isn't it? It's giving people the tools to be able to do the things they want to do.
Yeah. in the way that they want to do it.
I've just described occupational therapy. I should really get you to describe it.
Would you be interested? Are you considering a career change?
Maybe. I know someone who might be interested. So how do you describe it?
Well, I suppose in a succinct way, which I'm not being very succinct at the moment. In short, I would probably say it is supporting people who have some kind of disability to be as independent as they are able to be within their home environment. So it could be that you work with people to look at a different way of doing something, or practice for something that can help their ability to do it better, or you might have to compensate in some way with some equipment, potentially, that will help them do the things that they want to do, or maybe adapting their home with physical adaptation that will help them be more independent.
I was reading about the tea assessment, which, because I love tea, caught my eye. Can you explain? Because that's quite a common one, because it's a common task that somebody may have trouble doing. There are certain things that you look out for there, like whether they can remember where things are or what order they do things in. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing for any occupational therapy assessment is that you're assessing whatever it is that somebody wants to be able to do, and occupational therapists are very good at analysing activity. So you might think that something like making a cup of tea is very easy and straightforward, but it involves lots of different elements. There's the physical element of what you do, there's the cognitive side of knowing what to do, sequencing of the different aspects of it, remembering that you actually want to make a cup of tea, or knowing that you want to make a cup of tea, knowing where you need to go to make the cup of tea. And if you ask any one of us how we actually make our tea, we'll probably all do it in a different way.
Yeah.
Some people put the tea bag in first, some people use tea leaves, some people put the milk in, some people don't. So it's anything or something as simple as making a cup of tea is very complicated, or can be if you want to break it down. And if you want to get into all the real fine nitty-gritty of it, is so which muscles do you use in all of the movements that you're doing to lift the kettle, stir with a spoon? There's all different muscles that you use.
That's incredible. There's so much that people don't think about. But I suppose there must be, when you went to someone's house, quite often you're faced with frustration and anger that they feel they can't do those things. So you have to deal with that, and you have to be able to deal with that and turn it into something else. Really, what do you think are the personality traits or the gifts that people, or just what type of person would make a good occupational therapist?
I think that's quite a tricky question, because I think when I think about how the occupational therapist that I am, and the different people that I work with, and the different people that I've come across in the time that I've worked, everybody is so different, and they all have different qualities, the same as the people that you're working with also have different qualities. It sounds a bit cliche, but you need to be able to listen to people and take on what it is that they're saying to you, and not necessarily impose your own ideas. I think you need to be quite creative, you need to be a good problem solver that can then help to support. One of the things that I feel I'm quite a visual person, and I think one of the things I kind of imagine is that my head is a bit like a wardrobe, and it's there at the side, and every time I have an experience, you think, oh right, I'm going to put it on that hanger, and I put it in that wardrobe, and then you have another experience, and then you put it, and then as you go on, that wardrobe becomes bulging full of different experiences, different outfits, and then you come across something again, you think, that was really similar to something that I experienced before. Not quite the same, but I'm going to go into my wardrobe and get that experience out and think, okay, let's see how I can work on that now. But that's the insight into the bizarre world that goes on in my head.
Well, yes, and what an insight it is. I think there's that. I think problem solving is a fascinating thing. I think for all aspects of care, you have to be able to become a problem solver, because it is a kind of here comes the next thing, here comes the next thing. Have you got any stories, because you go into people's private space?
Yeah.
Have you ever been shocked or surprised by what you found?
Sometimes. I won't go into the... I don't know if I could go into some of the situations, but I suppose one of the you were saying about funny stories, and one of it's only a small little story, but I think demonstrates quite well some of the things that happen. So this is when I used to visit people, and I went to see a gentleman, and I think one of the things that's specific about occupational therapy is that when you assess somebody, you're not just sitting and having a conversation with them and asking them. So we look at the main aspects of how they're managing at home. So you might how do you get off the chair? How do you get in and out of bed? How do you manage with the bath or the toilet? So then there was this one gentleman that I went to visit. So we'd had a conversation downstairs, and then we'd gone. She said, "Let's go upstairs and show me how you get, how you manage in the bath and the toilet and the bed." So we went round the room, and then he got to the bedroom, and I said, "Can you just show me how you lay down?" Because he was having some problems getting his legs into the bath, which is a similar kind of movement. So I thought, if you show me how you lay on the bed. So he was able to get in. He put his legs into bed, and then he kind of put his head back on the pillow, and he said, "Oh, do you mind just drawing the curtains? I'm going to have a snooze now. See yourself out," kind of thing. And it was like, that's it. That's it. I'm in bed now.
You've learned enough about me now. Now I need to sleep. Yeah. Tell me about Indonesia.
Yeah, so this is some of the benefits of when you've got a qualification like occupational therapy. Skills that are sought after elsewhere. So after I qualified and I had some post-qualifying experience, I applied for voluntary service overseas, VSO, to work with them, and had. Normally, when you apply for VSO, you might get offered one placement, but shortage of occupational therapists. I had about 5, I think, that I could choose from, and the one that I decided to go for was in Indonesia, working with a very large local organisation there, to, I suppose, mainly 2 things. It was initially to support their Indonesian occupational therapists, and also to develop a programme for unqualified occupational therapists, I suppose, like our occupational therapy assistants it would have been, but they were field workers, so they would come into a base and then be trained, so they would then go out to their local communities.
Are there enough occupational therapists in the job market?
No,
really?
No. We're struggling at the moment to recruit occupational therapists, and I think that's a national problem at the moment in both health and social care. I'm not really sure why. I think the pandemic might have had something to do with it. Yeah. Changes in the way that university places are funded, which I think's had a bit of an impact. We do have an occupational therapy apprentice programme, which is brilliant. It's very similar to the way that I trained. When I trained, I worked as an occupational therapy assistant part-time, and then I went to university as well part-time. Yeah. And that was, it wasn't an apprenticeship, but it was funded that way. So I was able to carry on working and learn.
So you were able to learn on the job.
On the job.
Which is
so we have
very valuable,
an apprentice programme now in Suffolk County Council. But you could also work in health, you can work with children, adults, you can work in hospitals, in the community, you could work in prisons, you could work privately. There is so many different, even within occupational therapy itself, there's so many different routes that you can take, which are all specialisms in their own right.
So you'd like to see more people learning about occupational therapy. Fiona, I think some people might avoid doing social care work because they feel it's never going to pay them enough. So let's be upfront about it. I'm not going to ask you how much you earn, but an entry level occupational therapist, what would they expect? expect to earn?
Yeah, so if you've got a degree in occupational therapy and you're newly qualified, our kind of starting salary is 30,000 pro rata, obviously, and then you could move up. We have grade 5 and grade 6, so you could then move up the grades after a couple of years of experience. So I think that's kind of comparable to, I presume, newly qualified teachers, nurses.
It's surprising. That's a surprise to me. I presumed it would be a lot less. Do you think? I mean, because once you're in, there are so many other options. And there are so many ways of doing the training as well.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, at the moment, you can, if you want to train as an occupational therapist, you could do the standard 3 years MSc. There's several universities around here that offer that, Essex and UEA. If you've already got a relevant degree, you could do a 2 years master's, and then you come out of that, and then you could apply to us to be an occupational therapist. At that 30,000 salary, or like I said, we also offer the apprenticeship scheme at the moment, which is for current staff who are unqualified, but with experience, and that's a 4-year course that's funded by us. And if people externally were interested, they could always apply to be an IWP, our unqualified worker, independence and wellbeing practitioner. And then after they've had experience, they could choose to either do the social work or the occupational therapy apprenticeship and apply to do it that way. So, and I think that's a really good way of training on the job.
It's like once you're there, doors begin to open into all sorts of other areas. I think that's that's important to remember. If you wanted to persuade somebody to do what you do, or any kind of a social work or care, how would you inspire them? What would you say that one or two things that you think, this is what is so great about the job I do?
I think what I love about the job I do, and I think I love my job now, although I don't visit people, but I still love the fact that it's different every day. You never know what you're going to come across or who you're going to come across. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's a real privilege to be involved in people's lives, the way that we are. I think it's, you're within Suffolk County Council. I think there's excellent training opportunities. We've got great staff who are a support, brilliant people that you're working alongside with. It's varied. It can lead to so many other things, other opportunities if you want to. If you want to go in a different direction, you can do that. And I just think I'm always very passionate about working in social care, and for me it's the place to be working. It's great.
Fiona, thank you so much. Thank you. We've learned an awful lot about occupational therapy. Thank you very much.